Welcome to Surviving Roots, the podcast where we navigate the messy, beautiful work of healing and growth. I'm your host, Cari, and this is your space to breathe, reflect, and find strength. Whether you're breaking free from old patterns, healing from loss, or rebuilding your story one small step at a time, you're in the right place. So take a deep breath, give yourself this time, and let's uncover the tools to move forward with courage. This podcast is for you. Today on Surviving Roots, I am joined by someone whose work redefines what it means to be a mother, not just to our children, but ourselves. Dr. Gertrude Lyons has dedicated her professional life to exploring the transformative capacity of all people. She has led workshops at Google, the International Coaches Federation, Hey Mama, and more. Her work has been featured in The Guardian, Thrive Global, The Bump, Motherly, Business Insider, and My Body Green, and she's appeared on numerous media outlets. She's also the host of the podcast Rewrite the Mother Code and the author of the groundbreaking new book, Rewrite the Mother Code: From Sacrifice to Stardust, A Cosmic Approach to Motherhood. Dr. Lyons lives in Chicago, where she and her husband raised their family, and today she's here to talk about healing, legacy, and what it means to live from the inside out. Welcome, Dr. Lyons.
Thank you, Cari. Oh my gosh, it's always so a little sweet but cringy to hear your bio, but thank you.
Oh, you are super accomplished. I am so excited to talk about your beautiful new book, Rewrite the
Thank
Mother
you.
Code. I would love for listeners to know I've actually met you in person a couple of years ago.
Yes, we did.
We met at a conference and it was so funny. We met and then we just sort of kept ending up at the same table and bumping into each other. And I was like, I'm not stalking you. And you're like, I'm not stalking you. I think it was
No,
just the universe putting us in the same places.
I totally believe that. I know. It's like, there's Cari. And I didn't know anybody there. It was my first Mom 2.0. And so it was nice to see a familiar face in some of
Yeah.
them. But yeah, I did have that same feeling like, oh my gosh, she's going to think I'm following her because I'm like everywhere. And not that I didn't want to, because your energy, was so inviting and beautiful that I did also want to be with you.
Yeah, me too. I feel the same way about you. And, this is such a beautiful interview. And I'm so honored to have you here today because when I met you, we were talking about like, what do you do and what's your mission? And one of your goals was to write a book. So here we
Yeah.
are, Dr.
Here we
Lyons, here we
are.
are.
Yeah. And your work and your book, we were both in this kind of phase of we knew what we wanted, we know what we're doing, but we're still I don't know, on the precipice or on the cusp of
Yeah.
something and exploring. So yeah, I was trying out my rewrite the mother code with people yeah, a book and get people's reactions. And it is wild that here it is.
It's here. Your book baby is here.
Little baby's here. Yes, yes.
Well, your book is called Rewrite the Mother Code. And for someone hearing that title for the first time, what does it mean to rewrite the code of?
Yeah, thanks. No, it's a great question because I'll often get yeah, and then it's so, but what is that? It's kind of, I think it hits this internal knowing, but then I don't know, we don't always immediately know how to put words to it. But the mother code is that pervasive kind of cultural family wiring that we all have because we're alive on this planet. We were raised by a family or, caregiver. We had our upbringing and we've been in a culture. And out of that, we have formed ideas, beliefs, some of them, and albeit some are good, but it isn't, but we explore the ones that, maybe weren't so good, but these codes that are wired in us that unconsciously dictate how we make our decisions. And particularly in the arena of mothering or motherhood, those decisions have so much emotion behind them and they're just packed with a lot of beliefs, right? So what we want to do is explore and rewrite them. So there's these codes, good, bad, and confusing, the whole lot. So we want to discover what our particular ones are, what are some that everybody deals with, and then the journey is to rewrite your mother code and really get that there's so much more choice and you have the potential to have the motherhood experience of your creation, of your choosing that's way more expansive than if we just stick with what we saw every day or what we saw around us or what we see in media, then we're massively limiting ourselves.
Yeah. I love that you say that because, for everyone listening, it not only reminds us of our choices, but our power,
Yes.
our choice and our power.
And there are so many, I mean, some in your family situation, like, the power situation has a whole range of ways. But in our current American culture, it's a over masculinized value, patriarchal power.
Mm.
And so to get ourselves heard, to a big part of the book is tuning in, valuing, and listening to our intuitive sense, our internal wisdom, and combine that with knowledge,
Mm.
and technology and all the things. The two can work really well together. It's just we're wired and coded to believe that, the techno, I'm going to say in this example, techno medical, or, wherever there's big institutions around
Yeah.
something, your experience is going to be narrowed.
Yeah. I believe you've said that the mother wound is something that we all carry, not just daughters of difficult mothers.
Yeah.
How would you define the mother wound, and what are some quieter symptoms that often go unnoticed?
No, that's a great question, Carrie, because there were ways I felt that way because on the outside, people that knew my mom or knew my family, like everything's great, everything's fine. And some of the subtle things, not until I started looking, did I realize, oh my gosh, she's so overbearing, so much more kind of stealthily critical. Now these are still big.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're little. I found out that mine were actually bigger than I thought, but I still kept comparing. Well, I wasn't physically abused. I wasn't, emotionally necessarily abused, but I was narrowed hugely, with her opinions of later I would term enmeshed relationships. So sometimes when it's like, oh, your mom just wants to know everything about you. On the one hand, that could be, oh, isn't that lovely? Like she
Mhm.
cares, and she wants to be, she seems so interested. But there's other things going on, like she's getting her needs met through you. And you might have an inkling of how that feels when you're younger, but it also feels really good to, want it to be listened to and to have someone, want to know and be there witnessing. But you realize later it's like, well, she didn't really have a life of her own, so she was living vicariously through me. I don't know if these are still are these still two big ones of mother wounds, but sometimes we, oh, my mom is my best friend. Well, there's usually something that's great about that and something that's
Yeah.
limiting and not so great about that.
Yeah.
Just to break that one.
Yeah, no, 100%. I
Um,
told my daughter, like, "Listen, you're never gonna I love you, but we're not friends. I'm here to guide you
exactly.
and support you until you're ready to, you're 18, you go off into the real world, and I'll support you from a distance. Yeah, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to protect you and guide you and love you."
Exactly. No, and I think women, we get very confused,
Yeah.
and we're a lot of times don't know what that role is. So we think like we've sort of been taught like, oh, that's a good thing if you're super close to your child or your daughter,
Mhm.
and not when there aren't healthy boundaries,
Yeah.
or not when they're like so inside your life.
Yeah.
And no, yeah, okay, we made that point.
No, I 100% agree, and I like that you use the word boundaries. I actually just did a poking fun at, like, what do you get your estranged mom for Mother's Day?
Oh, I saw that, Carrie. It was brilliant.
I'm
It
like,
was
a
so
journal so
brilliant.
she can write down everything she should have told a therapist and not her child.
Yes.
Just boundaries. I think boundaries
Mm.
are healthy. Boundaries are very important no matter what the relationship is. Boundaries, in any relationship, is important.
Well, and something I have part of the process of rewriting your mother code, Carrie, is too, is I realize I said this on TV and I'm like, did I put that in the book? But make an agreement that you're willing to open yourself up to look at all aspects of the mothering you received, because there's a lot of rules and a lot of families instill them either overtly or it's under the radar, but you don't talk bad
Mhm.
about your family. You don't say things that you don't like about
Mhm.
anything that's going on. So I do ask women to look at as part of how else are we going to discover and create our own if we don't look at what we didn't like
Yeah.
and what we did like? So to make this agreement with yourself that you will be honest, that
Yeah.
that you will be willing to be vulnerable. And by naming those things, it doesn't wipe away everything that maybe was positive about your upbringing. And
Yeah.
I think, well, in my coaching, I've definitely seen that when the harder somebody's clinging to, like, no, I had a perfect child. Oh my God, my parents were like, I couldn't even imagine anything better. It's like, I
Yeah.
hate to be this like, it's not that we have to just find the bad. It's like nobody has a perfect experience of
No one.
anything,
Yeah.
right? Even the healthiest marriages, like there are so many things I don't like about my husband, right?
Well, that's
But
another episode we'll have to record. And I love my husband to death, but listen.
oh, that's so unrealistic. Like you're going to only always have positive feelings about your children. Like,
Yeah.
we're people, we're human, and we do things that the other person doesn't like. So making a list of what you liked about your upbringing and the culture around you and what you didn't like. And, being willing to be as honest and start, cracking into that territory. And then some of them you may realize like, wow, I didn't realize how much that, like some pain
Yeah.
might come up. You might start feeling some of the hurt that you didn't, or anger even, that it wasn't okay. So I preface it with like, yes, you might, some feelings might come up as you do this, but bravely forge ahead and go as deep as I give a lot of choice,
Yeah.
right? And, go as deep as you want, work with a therapist if you really want to dig into this, or getting a few of them out there that you're willing to, at least initially expose is going to take you somewhere.
Yeah. I love that you talk about honesty. That's so important because I think that's the only way you can truly heal and reconnect and get aligned with yourself is like the moment, I've been on a healing journey and from the estrangement with my mom for over 15 years, but it wasn't until a couple years ago when I really started becoming honest that I'm not so healed or not so
Mm,
good as I think that I am. I feel like it's the only way to truly break the cycle and own it because whether you say it out loud, like you don't have to on a podcast or social media like I am, but even like writing it down, like I'd write
yeah.
these things down and I'm like, wait a minute, but that's not true. Like things that I've carried forever, beliefs and the words that people have said to me, I look at them and I'm like, I'm so much more powerful than those words that
Mm,
people labeled me. Like
mm.
that's not true. And I'm able to like rip it up, throw it away. And like that feels good.
No, I love that, Carrie, so much because, and I've realized, over the years now that just what you're talking about, there's phases of our healing, of our transformation, layers that I do feel like it's like layers of an onion,
Yeah.
or kind of more like a spiral versus a B to B. I'm healed. I got to be, and I'm done, because you do reach points where like, oh my God, like I can't imagine uncovering any more than this. And this is amazing. And it's making such a big difference until it could be some big stressor or something that comes up in your life that it's like, what? And then you kind of spring back and you're like, wait, I thought I fixed that,
Yeah.
or I thought that, well, you did to where you were operating then, and now you're at a new level. I believe our system says like, okay, now we're ready for the next layer
Yeah.
to come up.
Well, speaking of layers, because you are doing so much, I want to get into this book. Like, what inspired you to write this book now? Like, was there a moment where you just knew your story and this message needed to be written down? It was time to share it with the world.
Well, it is a little bit of that. I think, Carrie, I think we start listening. So I decided to do a doctorate. I'd done two master's degrees, one in just straight psychology, because my undergraduate was finance and accounting, and here I am now. Like I did that because, that's what you did in the 80s is you did the major where you were going to make money, right? Who cares what interests you?
Yeah.
That's so beside the point. But I realized, through my 20s, it's like, yeah, this like really isn't my thing, but I like the people, right? And I like, because I was doing my own growth journey, I like sharing what I'm learning and, getting other people into conversation about it that I decided leave that world. And so then over the course of raising my daughters when they were young, I earned two master's degrees. So one in psychology, one in transformational leadership and coaching. I'm like, okay, I'm done with this school thing. Like this was really helpful and I valued it, both of them for different reasons very much. So I'm done. And then we would go on these yearly sacred travel, kind of spiritualish pilgrimages every year. And we were in Kathmandu in Nepal, wild, beautiful place. And we're sitting with this shaman. She's a woman, and I don't remember her name, which is terrible, but she was considered kind of one of those mama shamans, like just like the hug you kind of shaman. And she does this, little ceremony or this little process. And tears just started coming. I didn't even know why. Tears started flowing. And then I got one of her hugs. Like I was like there. And then I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And it was the beginning of me looking at, like you said, these layers, right? Like, okay, I just got 2 master's degrees, but there's something about how they still weren't for me. They still weren't. There's ways I kind of did them because that was what I was supposed to do, even though I did get a lot out of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
This was like, no, there's still more kind of in that arena, but also in this healing journey or this journey for you around where I was at that point in my own motherhood and mothering journey. And my critical thinking and thinking for myself because I'd had this mother who thought for me. And then I was in this work world where like I let them think for me. My husband's a genius. And like, okay, all these places I'm letting people like think for me. I'm like, this could be an opportunity to like really like dive in for you. And so crazily decided to do a doctorate, right?
Just add it to the list.
Oh my gosh. And it's going to be on mothering and motherhood because I've had my own journey. I've coached and witnessed others. I realized at that point too that, well, I didn't realize it immediately, but I was kind of had the inkling that even though I was coaching, I was director of a couples and parenting and family program and really doing doing these trainings and work to build social emotional intelligence and relationship amongst families, and I'm in it, but along the way I had kind of taken my foot off the brakes. It's like, I'll do it for others. I'm raising my children. I don't want to risk what's going to come up if I keep the gas on.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the combination of those two realizations, like, geez, I'm in a growth environment. It couldn't technically be a better place to like keep going. Why did I take the brakes off?
Yeah.
And so that, and how can I support other mothers, other women to keep the brakes on or just at least see what's possible? So it took me on the doctoral journey.
Yeah.
You do a doctorate, nobody reads a dissertation. It's, like, yes, I wrote a book, but it's like someday I want to write a book about this that is accessible. Like people can pick up off the shelf and learn some of these things I've been learning. I started after that. It's like, oh, I'm going to speak about it. And I started, I was writing articles. I was working more in the academic world for a press called Demeter Press. I contributed a couple peer-reviewed chapters, but I was definitely still in that academic kind of space. That I was a banana in the bunch, right? Like I tried, but it was really hard to like just be so academic. And again, it's like they kind of don't care what you think. It's like, what do 5 other people think about it? And how can you put that together? So this is turning into a lot longer than you may have expected. But the journey, I think, is so important because things kept revealing themselves. And I left the company. I realized like this actually is I way overstayed my time at this place and it gave me a lot at the beginning, but actually had started to become toxic and like I was in a really negative, abusive environment. And so I freed myself from that. And it's like now I can write the book I want to write.
Yeah.
Right. Because before that, I think I was aware, even unconsciously, like this isn't going to be my book. It's going to be this organization's book. Right. And I'll have to fight for what I want this book to be. And I, not like I had 100% sure what it was other than what I learned from my dissertation, what I was learning for myself and in my coaching and the workshops I was doing and the retreats I was doing that it's like, okay, it's time, right? It just is kind of like, let's take that first step. And that from that moment I said it's time, I think a year went by where I dabbled, right?
Okay.
I talked to people. I kind of was starting to work on an outline. That I was in that a whole year. And then it's like, no, if this is really going to happen,
Yeah.
I need support. So I hired a book coach and we really talked through and worked through, am I going to do a proposal? That's when I met you. I was in that
Yeah.
process of writing pretty close, but didn't really have full yet, like a full robust outline for it. But I was deciding, am I going to try and sell the book? I don't have this huge platform that's attractive to big publishers. So the whole game became clearer and clearer to me, but I really want to write this book and I don't want to wait the years it'll take for me to build that. So anyway, I made the decision to go with a small publisher. And the biggest thing with that was it was a win-win because she's a new publisher with distribution through Simon and Schuster. So I'm like, okay, well you know,
Yeah.
was like a good deal. And it was, but I didn't realize that I was all, gonna have like the perfect person to help me birth this book
Yeah.
because she encouraged me to break out. Like, yes, show you're an expert and some of your academic aspect, but that's not what this book is,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so my mystical side came out. I have poems in this book. Like, yeah, if I dabble writing a few poems here and there, sure, but I can't put these in the book. Like, I'm not a poet. So many things that she just kept giving me license to
I love
expand
that.
and explore and create and my personal story, right? And she was very sweet. She's like, I don't usually like people's personal stories, but I like yours. And this is we want more of that and less of other people's. I'm like, okay, we'll keep going. She was
Yeah.
super encouraging because I came from an environment that literally told me I can't write
Yeah.
and that I don't have anything to say.
Yeah. And now look at you.
Critical parent, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and yeah, is there probably an inkling? It's like, well, I'll show you, but for a good reason, right? Like
Mhm.
this is a topic I believe in. This is, I'd like it to be accessible so that, everyone can start exploring, and this is again, like I talk in there about, really thinking for yourself. I'm not saying like my book is the book that's going to, the one and only motherhood book that anybody should have, but I would like it to be part of people's library for sure.
Yeah. One thing while I'm listening to you, you have achieved a lot. You have been through a lot. You have juggled a lot. You stayed true to your path and you have this book that you were able to write and share with the world. There are so many women who feel like they're not doing motherhood right.
Mm.
And you did all of this and you're a mom. Like some others feel like no matter how hard they try, they're just not trying hard enough. Like, what would you say to the woman who feels like she's failing at caregiving and mothering and even self-care or following her own dreams? Because you've done it, Dr. Lyons.
Yeah.
What would you say to her?
Well, probably a whole bunch of things, but one of them is, that those beliefs, those thoughts, they're not you and they're not real. Like they just aren't real from the standpoint of that expectation or that belief, like I should feel a certain way. I should be doing a certain amount of things. I see so and so doing, if they look at me like, oh my God, she wrote a book and raised kids and, worked like I should do that. I want every women to get in touch with like what makes their heart sing. If it's being a full-time mom and like doing all those like I thought I was going to be this mother earthy make food and like I don't know, like and it just wasn't me. I tried for like a year or two. I did. I was like, I'm gonna be that stay-at-home mother earthy, like and I'm like, I don't know how to do this. This is uncomfortable. Like these little tiny beans there's so much aliveness, like they're stirring me up, like there
Yeah.
is a lot going on where I'm like, gosh, I guess I'm not that earth mother type, so but I was able to be okay with that. And I think that's it. Like if I would say if there's something I felt like on the positive side that I did is like I did decide to make choices and then do the best I could. And now I have adult daughters and we can talk about it, like where and I can look back and say like where I was coming from and how I would do it differently or like but at the same time still hold true. It's like and I hate it when my mom said like, well, I did the best I could. But there's a difference, I think, when you really are looking and exploring and researching and like, well,
Yeah.
this to me makes sense now.
Yeah.
Like in my life right now, this is what makes sense. And some of it I'd change and some of it I wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
It still is. So getting like okay with your choices and then being willing and really want to support women to build this core sense of self, like their own okayness or their own
Yeah.
enoughness, so that when you get the criticism, because you will,
Yeah.
because, until we all start coming together as moms and supporting each other's choices, you'll get them from other moms, you'll get them from your family, you'll
Yeah.
get them from the medical world, like you'll get them from social media. So you're going to have plenty to like, oh, I like, that's really what I want to do, but everybody's saying I shouldn't,
Yeah.
like that's not the right way to do it. It's like, no, your intuitive right sense. And if it's something that feels really off, research it, look,
Yeah.
explore, like, is this safe? Is this, I think I want to do it this way. And, be discerning
Yeah.
about, and don't accept everything that you hear as,
Yeah.
now I'm like, no, and don't do that. It's not so much a don't, but if there's a don't, I'm going to say it's don't accept everything you hear. If you have the slightest inkling that like, that doesn't feel right to me, follow that till you're satisfied.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. I think you have to really be grounded in your own truth and just stay, courageous and on your own path, because there's no one way to live, there's no one way to
No.
heal. And it's amazing how, like, I had something go viral on TikTok last week, and it was something about estrangement in my journey. And I don't promote estrangement. I promote boundaries. I promote the
Yeah.
communication. I promote you having the choice to heal and having the space to live your own life. And I mean, boy, did some of the meanies come out and just be like, you're a terrible daughter. You're just trying to control your mother. Maybe she was young. And I'm like, but I was younger and I was a child. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, but I'm so comfortable in my truth that instead of like being like, I'm such a bad person, what if they're right? I thought, wow, I wish them healing, or I wish them peace, or I wish those people their best life because I'm living mine. I just, I think with anything, like whether you're sharing your book, it's just to inspire others to lean into
Yeah.
what? Like, what were you surprised about yourself when you wrote this book? Like, what's one story or truth that you may have not realized you were still carrying, even at your
Mm.
age? Like, even if it's something from childhood, like, I don't know. Like, is there something when you were writing this book? Because I honestly think, like,
Yeah.
when people are like, what's it like writing a book? I'm like, well, for me in the book that I'm writing, or and especially I would think for a book like you're writing, there's a lot of stuff happening in between those words. So what's a story or truth you realized that you were still carrying possibly?
Yeah, no, there were definitely those experiences, Carrie, and and a whole range. Some were like, oh, actually really positive, and some were, oh, wow,
Yeah.
there's putting pieces together and stuff. But the first one that popped in my mind, this was for me a way I hadn't looked at this before, or I hadn't really, it was all about kind of where my relationship with my mother and what some of the things that came through when I was doing, my growth and healing from her and working on that relationship. But I hadn't really considered, even though I'd heard it and talked about it maybe a little, was generational trauma. And wow, like she didn't come to be who she was in a vacuum. And I kind of knew that, but I love my grandparents. So I never, wanted to think about or look at like they, there's a reason she is who she is. And even though they were what I needed at the time, and she doesn't even and hasn't, yet talked a lot anything really really negative about her parents. But that being said, this generational trauma piece, I don't know, something that just like hit me when I wrote it was, and knowing my mom's history, and when I found out like what she went through in her 20s, and I write about this in the book, she had an abortion. You didn't do that at the time, and and she happened to have an abortion on the day that the police decided to raid
Oh, wow.
the place and bring her home. Then she got pregnant again a couple years later. And that baby, she gave birth to that baby, but gave it up for adoption. As the man she was engaged to, she found dead of a heart attack in their home. Like this is all in her 20s,
Yeah.
right? By the time and now she had, right before I was conceived, my father had given her an ultimatum that she either stopped drinking or he was leaving. I had an older brother.
Mhm.
And she quit that day. I think I was conceived somewhere in the midst of that. But this realization, and then when I wrote it, I was like, wow, this was my human home. Like this
Mhm.
was the womb and all the trauma, like just that I was, marinating in that
Mhm. Yeah.
trauma in her womb, and the birth canal that I came through. Like if she had been quote unquote the best mom in the world, I still had that experience,
Yeah.
and that was going to impact me,
Yeah.
whether in whatever way I may never, be able to put words to it, so to speak, but I could feel it when I wrote it. And it
Yeah.
was, it just brought to light so that there's so many, as we said, deeper layers going on
Mhm.
to what. I mean, it was enough to work on all the stuff with my mom, and
Yeah.
this still is her. But then, knowing about epi, ep, I never can say that word, epigenetics,
Yeah.
all the things, that we carry and the generations we're carrying, like it's a big deal, and we're standing on the shoulders of a lot. So that's why I was like, well, any change I can make, any awareness that we can bring to this can hopefully like alter the outcomes for those generations to come,
Yeah.
like if we can bring some consciousness, if I can, name this and say it and honor it and not like, you know, be disgusted by it and have compassion for her still doesn't mean that I would have liked her to be different in some ways,
Yeah.
right? But I can also, honor her pain
Mm.
and all the pain that she is and still I know hasn't worked on and has kept it, inside. Amazingly, she's 95 and still alive. Like she can't believe it either.
Wow.
The way she lived her life when she was young, she's like, I don't know. But I'm grateful because I write about in the book too that I did get to a point where it's like, okay, I can accept you. And I'm now strong enough to be fully me with you.
Yeah.
Even when you still say mean, stupid things,
Yeah.
now I can kind of categorize her as quirky old lady and just
Yeah.
like, oh, mom,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that thing, right? Or
Yeah.
just, and to actually be able to have loving feelings toward her
Yeah.
was happening around and kind of help writing the book helped me navigate some of that for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And what does your mom think about this book?
She is, you know, we were just having a conversation about it yesterday. She is super proud,
I love that.
and I asked her early on, and as I was writing it, like, I'm putting our story, I'm putting your story in there, I'm putting, and, you know, I don't have to have her permission to
Yeah.
do it, but I wanted her to know, and she's like, "Yeah, it's okay," but I haven't reminded her, so I'm afraid she's gonna forget.
Well, it's too late now.
Too late now, right? And that's what I said, it's probably and
There's no turning back.
no, no turning back, and, I say in some of my talks that when I was having trouble even at the beginning of trying to conceive, and we weren't even conceiving yet because I wasn't getting a period, I had a really deep emotional response that I was terrified to be a mother and to
Mhm.
be a mother like my mother had been,
Yeah.
and I say that, it's like, I don't wanna say that in public with her
Yeah.
in the audience, but I'll still say it,
Yeah.
I said it in my TEDx talk, it's gonna get heard,
Yeah.
but I now at least know that, we can honor that with it. So it's lovely to hear, and I feel like I can take it in. It doesn't feel like it's for her. And if she says things like, "Well, I want to show you off," or "I'm so proud of you," and "I love bragging about you," it's like I I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Whereas like 10 years ago, I'd been like, "Oh, I don't even want to give her that."
Yeah.
Now I'm just giving her something.
Yeah.
So it's been a journey for
Yeah,
sure.
but it looks like you're moving in the right direction in your journey, so that's
Yeah.
what it's beautiful to see. And has rewriting your own mother code impacted the relationships with your own kids at all?
It sure has.
I bet so.
Yes, absolutely. That's where I've really gotten to see because that it never ends, right?
Yeah.
Something we haven't talked about, Karen, I just want to name it is, this process that I'm writing about and rewriting your mother code can apply with whether or not you have children, right? And
Mhm.
there's aspects that I've been glad to see that people are picking up on that comes through women who have are kind of had the chance to pre-read it that don't have children. Like I
Yeah.
still feel like I get a lot out of this book because I want one way I want us to bring us together as women is to see that we all mother,
Mhm.
in that journey of whether you have a child or not, you're still mothering. You're mothering something, you're mothering ideas and dreams and careers. And even with children, I've mothered this book. It's,
Yeah.
my dissertation. I call them my third and fourth children. And I want to give that broader context. So we're always rewriting and we're always rewriting our mother codes, and it's coming up for us at different phases and different choice points. So, probably the biggest one I saw come up most recently. And it was also while I was I was in the early stages. It was right before a couple months before I saw you, when my daughter got married. So when my older daughter got married, and I'm now in the midst of like thinking about, this book and stuff. And I didn't have to look far to say like, well, what codes am I going to write? Like, because
Yeah.
immediately Mother of the Bride has its own code, right? And they're not good ones, most of them.
Yeah.
Most of what's out there about Mother of the Bride is like, oh God, the bride's fine, but the mother of the bride, they're the ones you have to worry about. They're terrible. And, there was not a lot of positive to say. So I was like, well, I don't want to just be about not being that mean, whatever. But I realized that when I got married, I was just starting growth work with my mom and separating and starting to like want to make decisions and choices on my own. And so I wanted distance and separation. So I just instinctively like, well, my daughter's going to want to she doesn't want me imposing
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm kind of hanging back. She's like, Mom, what are you doing? I'm like, well, no, I don't want to be overbearing or too much. She's like, well, guess what? If you are, I will tell you.
Yeah.
And you have to trust me that that if you're offering something or suggesting something that I don't like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Or if I do, and then I'm mad at you later, well, we can talk about it. So I'm like, so I enter into this with her, and then all this stuff started coming up that I didn't expect, because when I got married, I was 24 and young and whatever. I wasn't very thoughtful, particularly around feminist things. I'm like, what is all of this business? My husband's so excited to walk her down the aisle and give her away and
Yeah.
do the father of the bride speech. And then there's the father of the bride dance. I'm like, well, what does the mother of the bride get here? Right. Like, and I was kind of like pushing back a little bit, but it's not like I'm not happy for him to do that, but I'm like, more, can we talk about the fact that that's an archaic patriarchal ritual that we're, following through on here? So make it your own. Like, don't
Yeah.
just follow. So all this, like, oh my God, this is all terrible. Like, I can't like just do the ceremony like that. And she's like, Mom, you can both walk me down the aisle, or, you can give a speech too. I'm like, well, then I just feel like I'm tagging on, right? That doesn't feel right either. So in the room, in the kind of being with it, and we were in Mexico, and it came to me like really strongly, really clearly, like, do a bridal blessing for
Yeah.
her. Like,
Oh,
do
I love
something
that.
that has meaning for you, that you would want, how would you want, what would you want to give her
Yeah.
in this, and provide. And it ended up being just this beautiful, beautiful experience that we did, one morning. And my only regret is like I was still kind of shy about it, didn't make it a big deal. We didn't have a photographer there. We, didn't
Yeah.
have the whole thing. So it still kind of remains in the background, and that's on me. But that was one instance. And I did coaching sessions on this. I went deep,
Yeah.
on this for myself. That's an overt one, as they start thinking about having kids, which they've said they are, but, it's like, "Ooh, that one." I had a Wall Street Journal journalist, like, interview me about it as a potential story, and I'm like, "Whoo," I'm in this one. So,
Yeah. You're in it.
it's like, this is my expertise. I do have strong opinions on this one, and it's gonna be a whole, like, give those strong opinions and then let go,
Yeah.
right? Is my foreshadow on that. So yeah, it's an invitation always to look at like, where are these codes, our wounds, what's being pricked, and in the mother arena, there's lots of potentialities for us
Yeah.
for that, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, I just want to thank you for being here today.
Mm,
Your book, I mean, Rewrite the Mother Code from Sacrifice to Stardust, a cosmic approach to motherhood. I highly recommend everyone going on Amazon and grabbing your copy, because we all have the choice to heal. We all have the choice to rewrite our mother code. And how would you like to end this?
yeah.
What would you like to say to everyone listening?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think the thing that I would add is that we have this chance to rewrite, and then we get to explore like, what do we want from that? What are our
Mm.
deeper desires? What let us be bold enough to really imagine, what that could be, even if we think it's impossible. And, there's a part in there that I say this can, I have a chapter on writing your cosmic codes, or just understanding that there's layers upon layers. Just as we said, there's layers of healing to be done.
Mhm.
There's layers of experience,
Yeah.
whether that's a transcendent experience, a spiritual experience, if that's a way you want to look, or just, for women, that honoring and knowing that you can have pleasure in your life and you can orient to pleasure and joy is, what I would, I guess, most wish for those that if you're going to do that work, that's the payoff.
Yeah. I love that. And to know that like we're all worthy of that. We're
Yes,
all worthy of that.
for sure.
I want to thank you so much for your time
Mm.
today. Congratulations. Also, after you grab a copy of her book, check out the TED Talk. Congratulations. You
Thank
are on
you.
fire this year,
Yeah,
Dr.
we're
Lyons.
we're getting it out there. We're working it. Yeah, thank you so much, Cari. It's been such a joy to be with you. Have this excuse to be with you and be on your show. It's a privilege.
Well, hopefully one year soon I'll be able to attend one of your fabulous retreats. Like
Yes.
every time I see the date, I'm like, it's when you're mothering the young children still, it's very hard to leave and navigate, but eventually they'll
100%.
be like, I don't need you there. But I hope to reunite with you in person one day soon.
Me too.
Until
Thanks,
then, I'm
Cari.
going to dive into your book. And I
Yay.
just, such a pleasure knowing you and connecting with you always.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Surviving Roots. I hope it gave you something meaningful to carry with you. Let's keep this conversation going. Find me on Instagram at cari.fund, where I'll share more from the show. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who needs it. And remember, we are the choices that we make.